Corbin, it's good to have you.
Yeah, wonderful to be here.
Yeah.
A little stressed about the camera, but I think it's fun.
Didn't know about that, did you? It's alright. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
You probably.
You can't slap.
So
That's
this
gonna be
isn't
distracting.
actually recording. This is just for Kayla so she can join
Yeah.
It's
us.
a Zoom meeting.
So it's not like recording.
We do audio record these meetings and post them on
Okay.
our YouTube channel, yeah. So you know. Emma, do you want to pray for us this morning?
Yes, of course. Lord, we come to you with thankful hearts that are wanting to be taught in your ways. I pray that today we would not be stagnant or in the wrong mind, but that our hearts will be postured to you, and that this would be an everyday thing, that we would always be seeking after you. I thank you for this time and relationship that you are building in our midst. I pray that it would grow stronger every day, and that our hearts would be for you. Amen.
Yeah. I just think it's funny. Right next time.
Well, right, I was started praying and went just to you.
It's zoomed.
And then I went back
It's
after
zoomed
she
in
was
right
on.
on purpose.
No,
That was really.
turn it.
It went to Corbin.
Yeah, just
Yeah, like it zoned everyone else out, and then it just Corbin on the screen.
Turn it.
All right. Yeah. Much of what we tend to discuss during these meetings has usually to do with other things that we've discussed in different meetings
Gotcha.
throughout the week.
Eventually.
Yeah, but actually we can definitely catch you up on things as we discuss them. So like you don't have to have. It would be helpful to have, but you don't have to have the full context for everything we discuss. Because usually those are just kind of the starting points of the discussion. We go off into other somewhat unrelated things.
Gotcha.
But it just came to mind that we do still record and post most of our other meetings, whether they be during our Tuesday Culture Center time or any other meetings. So that is actually all available to listen to and even to watch on YouTube if you were interested.
Maybe.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot better, especially with our Tuesday Culture Center time at recording those sessions. So and regularly publishing them. So that's all available if you ever wanted to check it out.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
obviously not something expected of you or required of you to be here at all. It's just that's a resource that if you wanted access to, just ask us. So there it is, zooming up on Corbin.
No, I
you
keep
need to turn
zooming
that
on
off.
me. I keep looking at it.
I'm done with that.
Anytime I make eye contact with myself, it zooms
Yeah.
in on me.
Okay, she's just gonna get to look at me.
Great. So usually I'm the one that will have to start the discussion because everyone else is so quiet here. So,
Gotcha.
but I try to give other people opportunity to start things.
I was gonna say, speaking of quiet, I was curious what other people, if there were any thoughts on what we went over with Tim yesterday. I had scant conversations with others about why I was more quiet, but I would be curious to hear if there were similar or other reasons from others.
I wanted to mention yesterday when he was talking about it that my overall thought of it. But I thought yesterday we were going to go through the whole thing. I didn't know we were just starting one part of it yesterday. But my thoughts on the writing and kind of that time were kind of what Dad shared in the later part of that time. Was I think maybe immediately reading the thing he sent out, I was expected to agree with everything that was like in that writing about that Wesley family, and I was thinking about it in context of, you know, if I raised my own children one day, that I probably wouldn't do the exact same things that this person did. And in a way, I feel like that would be a little unrealistic, being that culture and things have changed in a lot of ways. But what I took away most from it was kind of just a way in which to kind of create a family culture. And I think for me it had less to do with the specifics and more about kind of I don't know if system's the right word, but a way of doing things together as siblings to sibling and parent to child. And I think it was something I hadn't really thought of in depth before, because in the times I've thought about if I raised my own family, I've always thought about it kind of in small circumstances, and that kind of how like everyday life would work. And I mean, I don't think that's not a very common thing to think, especially when you're not even in any kind of relationship. So it's something that's kind of a foreign thought, but I think it is healthy to consider those things before you're actually in that. And that writing kind of made me more deeply consider how those things work. Because there is really a fine balance in parenting, and many times it tips to one side very, very easily. And I think in the way they raise their kids in that writing seemed, I don't know where I put it in that balance, but when I took it, again, what I took most away from it was there was a structured way that family was done. It wasn't just, let's do this and you'll learn as you go. Because like that's what I've heard a lot of people say about raising children, and I think there is a lot of reality to that. Like, you're not going to avoid problems and learning as you go, but like the idea of just let's just do this and like whatever happens, like I don't think that's very smart, because then you can kind of do things in a way that produces some issues that would not have had to been dealt with if you had gone into that in a different way. But those are kind of just my thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think talking with Isaac like a week ago or so about the writing and just kind of, I don't know, sharing thoughts with one another, and we kind of came to the realization that a lot of what was in that writing for us was things that we were going through right now, like learning what it means to overcome the self-will and to submit to authority or whatever it may be, all these little things that, you know, obviously were instilled in like some kind of measure in us when we were kids, but we're like living through it on our own right now. Like, and it's interesting to be considering what it would look like for somebody like your children when you still are having to work through a lot of that discipline in your own life, you know. And so I thought that was interesting, just kind of to see that a lot of those things could be avoided, you know, and not to condemn or to go down on our parents in any way, because, you know, they have been learning a lot as well. It's not like they purposefully tried to lead us down the wrong way. Obviously that wasn't their intention, but seeing, I don't know, even the Lord's intention in bringing it up right now, where a lot of those things feel very real, I guess, for a lot of us, and like we're going through the measure of that, you know, that could have been avoided if there was some better discipline or whatever it may have been early on, you know, instilling those good habits. And, you know, another thing that really helped me in my perspective was something that you said, I think last time we talked about it, because I think I had a few different conversations where I was kind of feeling like there should be some kind of measure that kids should have to go through on their own to kind of like work through stuff. And like, I think it was with you and we were talking about, you know, what the difference between being forceful and letting something play out in somebody's life is, and how a lot of that writing feels kind of like it can be mixed with the parents' will more than anything, right, over the children. And so I was thinking in my own mind that there is some things that obviously need to be worked out in somebody's heart and mind. And so that kind of, for me, made that idea of wanting to have a certain amount of control kind of feel wrong, I guess. But then you said something like, no matter what, kids are going to have to go through that struggle within themselves. But that place or that discipline that you show is giving them like a guideline to go through that, you know? Instead of what I was seeing as something that is just to kind of shape them in the way that you want. But I started to kind of think of it more as giving them some kind of direction in that struggle, because they are going to go through it still and are going to have to work through the self-will. But yeah, that's your, why wouldn't you, you know, start to build some structure in their life to help them understand what that looks like and what it looks like to overcome that. So that was just some of the thoughts I was thinking about.
Actually, that goes in line with what I was thinking about. What I realized is that, for context, it was parents that were raising their children under what was essentially a very strict regimen.
Mm-hmm.
And I had realized that what you took away from that text had to do a lot with the perspective in which you were viewing the parents. And a lot of that perspective, you can forcefully change it if you're mindful of it, but your first reaction is very often how you were raised as a child. And that is the mindset and perspective that you put upon those parents, whether you think about it or not. And I think that is why the first read around, had such a hard time with that writing. And it's very much with what you were saying, saw that from the perspective of punishment and discipline coming from a place of emotion. And I had realized that in my childhood, those two were never really separate things. Punishment and discipline often went hand in hand with anger and yelling and tears and all of the things. And I had realized that because of that, I was viewing those parents in a lens that was unfavorable, to say the least, but that was highlighting the, I think, big issues I even have had with discipline and punitive action in general with parenting. A lot of these events in the past couple months have had a lot to do with me unearthing a lot of childhood stuff, and I don't think I'm necessarily alone in that. And this writing especially I around the second read around when I realized, oh, I'm actually not viewing this from the correct lens. Let me try and read this again, as Tim had suggested. I was able to read it in my own time and be like, oh, okay, I can actually see the perspective now. Trying to envision the parents from a place of love and of basically getting it out of the way with their child, right? Trying to break something in while it's still easy to do, rather than have them struggle later on. And that actually did help me quite a bit. But then when we had gotten to class time, I don't particularly know what it was, but I think a lot of that came flooding back for me. And it felt very difficult to speak even without choking up on it. Yeah, I think I very much can relate to what you were saying with it's things you're currently dealing with, not just the implications of you as a potential future parent. I think for me, not only is that discipline not quite there in terms of properly subduing the self-will, but there's like a little extra measure to get over there because of how difficult a topic discipline in general is for me, and how I've realized I don't think I've even self-discipline, I don't think I've ever viewed in a healthy context.
So I guess to ask the same question my dad did at the end of class yesterday, what do you think that means for you now?
I think that a lot of it, and my moving forward with that, has to do with the continued restoration of the relationship with my dad. And I think, I don't know whether he saw me or just knew based on what was said, but he found me after class and we kind of just hugged each other for a little bit, because I think he knew that was not an easy time for me. And he apologized a lot just for how that went down when I was younger. And needless to say, it feels like my dad is an entirely different person. And so that, in and of itself, makes it like, honestly, slightly difficult to even associate those actions of my childhood to that person that's with me today, which makes that, it feels like there's a blockage there. But I really do think that that key is with the relationship with him. And I am very encouraged just to be able to walk that path with him now. And I'm just very encouraged that he wants that just as much as I do. And so I don't necessarily know the context it takes outside of that. I think I'm kind of just along for the ride and trying to deal with what comes up as it does. But I can say for certain that things are much, much different than they were then. And I think I'm finally in a place where the inner child me is starting to recognize that and is slowly coming out of that shell, which I think is what makes me so sensitive to these kind of subjects, because that's a very wounded place in me that is very sensitive to such things. Even, your dad wasn't particularly saying anything in general. It's just that subject is sensitive. And so I think even the fact that it is making me feel so uncomfortable and it is rubbing me in those wrong ways is actually producing something, because it's forcing me to interact with those things that prior I would have no interest in interacting with at all.
Yeah, going over it yesterday with him, I didn't expect to take away what I did, which was actually much less of like imagining or playing out scenarios in my head of how I would interact with my own children, but it was much more like what kind of regular patterns do I observe in myself right now? Because it was that regular pattern way of interacting with children that was what was most emphasized in my mind. Mm-hmm. And obviously the most relevant question to ask ourselves is not what patterns would we enact at that time in the future, but what kind of patterns are playing out in our lives right now,
Mm-hmm.
because those will definitely work into, if they remain as they are, they will work into the patterns we employ in parenting. And so that is, I think, regardless, I think the concerns and sensitivities you have are 100% valid. I'm not denying that at all. And like everyone has observed, that's something that's different for each person, so that's also worth acknowledging. But regardless of your past experiences, the one thing we can all take away from this writing, I think, is I would say the same thing I'm taking away from it, which is the self-reflection on how you're thinking about your own individual self, your own habits and things of that nature, and what the future implications of those things are. I guess maybe even not having to worry as much as what will this lead to. I mean, that's definitely a worthy consideration, but more so like evaluating things as they are now, and then starting to look at changes you can make, just in the same practical, maybe even methodical approach you'd have towards children. Start to test those things on yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like what my mom mentioned yesterday during the time, is we've all kind of reached an age where in the process of self-discipline we can begin more or less to parent, so to speak, our own selves, our own souls, which is really just another way of saying learn to discipline ourselves. And the practical part of that is just in observing the sort of habits we have, both good and bad. I know this is just a really common conversation to have about self-cultivation, like just, you know, the topic on habits and how to build good ones, how to get rid of bad ones. That's not anything new to any of us, but I think the more hackneyed that those things become, the less importance we give to them, and then the result of that is not good, because they are actually very important things.
I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. I think you're 100% correct that everybody is different. And so I am just saying with myself, I actually observe the Lord is removing a lot of structure and habits from my life. I'm assuming so that I can build new ones.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily think what I have now is all bad. But I will say this, I can very much tell that I like a structure with my days, and I normally plan things out to the hour. And very, very often I will not get to enact that plan. And it is a matter of me taking that and adjusting. I think even yesterday I planned on going home after our meeting, and I stayed in town till like 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I agree. I think that implements itself differently with everybody depending on where you're at. I came from a world of, and I would say they were good habits, like it was exercise regimes and when to do laundry, when to shower, all of those things, but I had a very structured life for myself because it felt safe. And I've even incorporated things like, you know, time set aside for reading and prayer into that. But I think all of that is kind of coming undone within me recently, probably so that he can build it up in another way.
Yeah, I feel similarly, though my circumstances are different, of course. I always feel as if my goals for the sort of things I'd like to do, particularly when I'm by myself, because I feel like I'm disciplined enough when around others and doing the things that are in my, or a part of my role or responsibility to do in a public setting. But by myself, I feel like the structure of my time could has a long ways to go to get to the place that I would like to be. And I know everybody feels that way. Man, I wish I could do these things more often. I wish I had these habits. And I think it will be less a matter of trying to reach that idealistic version of yourself, because I don't think you ever will necessarily get there, because even if you do, then a new one spawns.
I'm
further
very
down-
familiar
yeah.
with that concept. Yeah.
It'll be less a matter of reaching that finish line, and more so, I think one of reconsidering or reinterpreting the tyranny of the urgent, that sense of urgency you have, or sense of lack that develops as a result when you consider how much you are behind in that. And the it shouldn't be a kind of tyrannical thing. It shouldn't be something that doesn't conjure anything in you but a sense of failure and lack. It should be another measure, especially in this realm of self-discipline, which you learn to exercise patience with yourself, because this is actually one way that I think this sort of discipline extends into even something like parenting, is the less patience you have with yourself, the less patience you'll have with other people, especially people that are in your care and responsibility.
Little mini people.
Yeah. And so if you don't learn to apply that patience to yourself now, I can guarantee you probably won't have it with anyone else that become members of your own household. So this is that parenting aspect of self-discipline, the way you learn to care for yourself, in a manner of speaking, will extend to the way that you do so for others. That's taking oneself as an analogy, like we've talked about before.
Yeah, I'm very happy with the progress I've made with that. It feels like I started in the negatives and I've worked my way to baseline, but I'm still happy with it. But it used to be so bad. Like if my schedule got disrupted because my mom wanted me to go out with people somewhere, like I never left the house ever. And if I had to for whatever reason, and my day structure, I was 17, 18 years old, and I would actually cry real tears if I felt like my day was going to be flung off. Like that's how attached I was to my schedule. And I mean, now it's kind of like par for the course. Like, oh, didn't expect that. Okay. And I don't know. I feel like that's pretty normal for people, but for me, I'm very happy that I've gotten to a place where I'm not like beating myself relentlessly for not like getting certain things done or doing certain things in days. That has been something that I know is the work of God in my life, because tyrannical is the perfect word for it. That had like a rule over my life that was suffocating. You can, I'm sure, ask Isaac. He probably remembers how I never did anything because I was always worried about, oh no, I have to do these push-ups at exactly 10:10 or the world is going to actually explode.
So then what you do is you don't dispose of all regular
Oh, certainly.
scheduled things or habits, whatever, that you want to discipline yourself to have. But I think you start to invest more in habits of thinking, which you carry with you wherever you go and whatever you're doing. And those are the most important habits to build. And if they're bad habits, they're the most detrimental habits to have. And they're also the most difficult habits to unravel and the most difficult habits to build. So they're kind of the most of everything.
Oh, I know
so
exactly what you mean.
they're kind of the center of everything as far as it concerns habits. So again, these are habits of mind and of thinking. And there are very practical, even hands-on way to tackle those. We've mentioned really common and I think very overlooked practices such as journaling or spending time meditating. Again, yes, those are things that you have to have time and space to do.
But it is a mindset. I know
Yeah.
what you mean.
And I think regardless of how busy a person you are, those things can be worked into
You can make
a
those
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And again, I'm not putting those on a pedestal per se, because they're not like absolutely necessary for you to learn to deal with these habits of mind. But the point I'm trying to make is, those are the things we really focus in on as far as this discussion on habits goes, because they are things, as I already said, that you have with you and that you can practice regardless of whether or not you went home after Tuesday school, or you're out to dinner with friends or cousins. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter where you are.
No, 100%.
Those things will, because they're in your mind. Or
Yes.
they are you. Yeah.
That's exactly, I have actually been very happy that I have built up quite a few new mindsets within myself that I 100% see playing out like that.
Mhm.
Taking down some of the older ones has been more of a struggle, but I can't say that there's been no progress, so I'm happy with it.
Yep. What about the rest of you?
Me and Kim were actually just talking about this, funny enough.
Really?
I was just telling her that I have a hard time making plans with people. Like, if I want to hang out with someone, I'll just go ahead and make the plan. And it'll just be like, just because I want to do something, so I get it done, right? But she was telling me how the Lord doesn't fit in a schedule, and I need to learn to be flexible. So instead of going out and doing whatever I want because I want to do something, rather waiting for that person to come to me instead,
Mhm.
or letting those things fall into place and being moldable in my time. I just thought it was funny that you brought that up because your mom has continually mentioned it to me.
My mom and I are very similar people in that regard. I
Yeah.
think I got my obsession with habits from her, so that is life experience she's speaking into you, which is encouraging.
Yeah, it is.
I think she's gone through that exact struggle. She is a great example in that regard, just because of how much I've noticed that she has to let go of on the daily. I mean, it is a real, and I can, I guess, see it in a little bit more light being her child, and I would assume having very similar mindsets to her, but I mean, she can't drive herself anywhere. When she gets to a location, very often, depending on the nature of it, she has to be pushed around in a wheelchair or something like that. There is so much control that she has to just completely secede and literally just let it happen. All the while she is expected to be at such things and expected to get a ride and expected to be pushed, but she cannot have that expectation of others. And so I 100% agree. I think she is a great person to talk to about such things, because there is so much lived and is currently being lived experience in her with that.
That's one of the benefits of being a truly simple person. I think simplicity has a lot less to do with the style of your clothing or your interests, but more so the kinds of desires that you have. I think the fewer and simpler your desires are, that's really what marks you as a simple person. And what I was saying with the benefit of being simple in that sense is you, as that sort of simple person, you have less things pulling at you in whatever direction. And so as a result, I think even in that, you are less likely to have expectations you've built towards things unmet, because you don't have that many expectations. And so that is, at least I can speak for myself in saying that's something I aspire to, is to just have less things I desire. And those things which I do desire are not just substantial good things, but also things that are desires that are likely to be met, that are not they're not based in lesser ambitions and things like that. Of course, that's the daily battles, we almost always have those things, and so we're trying to navigate them or quiet them, or, as I think is usually the case, pursue them somehow, try to get them somehow. But
I think as younger people, that's a difficult battle. Ambitions.
that's where my mind goes with simplicity and self-discipline. Is then you get, like, the first thing that comes into my imagination is like a stoic life. So, like a Spartan, you just have like your super simple living quarters, and you do these really simple exercises of mind and body. Like, I'm not saying that's something that I would really want to do. It's just that's like the quintessential idea I have of a simple, disciplined life. But that is, I would say, a simplistic idea of a simple life, not to be confusing.
No, it's like the
Because it's actually much more. Just think of trying to work that. I mean, I guess it would be more of a guy thing to live like a Spartan, but just try to think of how convoluted and complex it would be to try to enforce that sort of lifestyle in the midst of your current circumstances with the community that you live with. It would actually kind of
be a detriment.
It would be counterintuitive, because you would, in your attempt to live more simply, you'd actually be you'd be making things more complex. And so it actually has much more to do with your ability to read your current state of affairs and circumstances, and the people that, your current schedule, which is always tied in with, at least in our case, other people. It's finding simplicity in your current environment, not in an imagined environment. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. That's that being flexible for sure. There's like a going with the wind, but still maintaining a certain shape. It's not like you're just flying in the wind like a plastic bag or a piece of paper, right? It's like you're flowing with the wind, but you're maintaining a structure even in the going with that. I don't know if that makes any sort of sense, but that's the idealized thing I imagine, because I can speak from personal experience. You can try to enforce that within your life, having that very regimented thing. It only does work either in theory or if you just decide to cut off all relationships, which I don't think either is very great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that suits me to a T.
Yeah.
Sadly, I'm coming out of that now. It's as hard as I think you imagine. Like, this is complicated. This is diverse to me, because I will only really put myself in places that I think will have me. But because I've gone so long just doing things alone, that it is comforting to be able to do something by myself. If no one's in my space, I'm stronger to do what I am trying to do. If someone else is around, I'm actually far less competent, because I know at some point in my head I'm doing this either seeking praise or I want to seem like I know what I'm doing. Living simply works, but it is not rich in anything. But you will forget what it's like to be rich in anything. You'll be content. But content's not really moving forward. It's not growth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. An important motive to have in anything that you're doing, as far as it has to do with, those regular patterns you're building in yourself, is they're not meant to, as you're saying, they're not meant to keep you in a place as much as bring you to a place, I'd say. I mean, even going back to the discussion with parenting, you're not applying regular pattern discipline to a child with their current state and remaining in that state or stage of maturity in mind, but you're always disciplining them with more or less with the future of their person, of their development in mind. It's the same applies to
It's that dynamic discipline.
Yeah, the same applies to the parenting of ourselves. We're always aspiring to a greater level or state of maturity. It's not just trying to plateau or content or find contentment in our I wouldn't say our current circumstances, because it's good to find contentment in those. I'm talking about the inner circumstances, the state of our mind and heart. That's always something that should be seen in a progressive light. So yeah, it's a good observation.
Yeah, it's easy to exist or survive instead of live.
Yep.
It takes effort to thrive in anything.
Yeah, that's that survival or orphan mindset. I very much have that as well.
Mhm.
It's something within you that like resists interchange. I know it in myself certainly, because I used to think, oh, I'm a very content person. I'm always content, but that's not it. I'm not outwardly content. I am inwardly content.
Yeah.
If there's no change happening here, I feel safe, because change can be dangerous.
Yeah. What you've internalized was for survival, and it
Mhm.
keeps you safe.
Mhm.
So to grow probably means cutting down a couple of pigs, and you might fall over doing it.
But it's necessary. You have to,
Mm-hmm.
and it's scary.
Yeah. I wasn't here for the parent book thing, but do you think, is it okay to alienate a child slightly? Do you stand above or equal to a kid?
How do you mean, like, alienate them? I don't understand.
Because I think by taking a stance of authority, you distance yourself. And as a parent, you should always, I feel, be who they immediately go to. Maybe not for answers, but maybe answers or comfort. Because, I don't know, I feel like I've only been able to truly learn from somebody if they were willing to level with me. If they were willing to less understand me, but more just talk to me exactly how they're thinking.
I think part of that has to do with the stage of development in the child.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what this writing went over was those very young years, like from birth to like when they were probably young, maybe 10, 11, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that very developmental stages, and I think what it was essentially doing was trying to establish habits and patterns within the child. I think very much a part of it's something called the harness of the Lord, and it's very much when you give your life to the Lord. I'm sure you've heard that before. What you're essentially doing is everybody's got a tether on them, right? And you can either hold that tether yourself or you can give it to Him, right? Part of when you're raising children, you very much hold their tethers, right? You are their guardian. You hold that harness. And so a lot of parenting in that aspect is getting the child very used to and familiar with that harness, right?
That makes sense.
So then, and to your credit, right, you're wanting to level out with them. I think that happens as they enter more stages of maturity. And what that essentially is you are taking that harness and giving it to them, so that then, they can either give it to the Lord or decide what they want to do with that harness. But I think that is part of that maturity, is when you are no longer necessarily this absolute decider in their life, and you are taking their harness and giving it back to them, so that, and hopefully with the patterns you have established in their life, they see the value in then choosing to give that harness to the Lord.
Okay.
But yeah, I think part of that is when a child is that young, I mean, I feel like it's difficult to establish a proper relationship there.
It is,
with
a kid's mind it wants to soar.
Exactly.
It's hard to establish anything.
Yeah, and when you're not quite that, I do see what you are saying, and I think that just comes with maturity. I think trying to do that early on with a child is probably more difficult than it's worth.
Yeah, probably. I guess maybe responsibility has to grow alongside strength. While you're weak, you can't be expected to do everything, or even comprehend or simply matter to everything.
Yeah, there's something like the word authority carries a lot with it and can carry very different things for different people, right? So authority seen as meaning those under that authority say, for them it means submission and obedience and limits and punishment. Those are aspects of authority which, when they are in the forefront, then yes, words that may accompany that definition of authority may very well be things like alienation.
Yep.
But then when authority, because this is the thing, is it's not just how authority is perceived, but also how authority is exercised.
Mm-hmm.
When authority is exercised in love, those other things I mentioned, submission, obedience, even punishment and discipline, are only tools by which the true purpose of authority is exercised, those being protection and provision and instruction and teaching.
Yeah.
Which that is what authority is for. I mean, but again, the way that it is applied is through those natural means, which are things like obedience and the rest. But those even as we were discussing moments ago, those are not things that keep the child in this desired constricted place, but they're all meant to indicate or to lead the child to a very good, solid, beneficial place. And yeah, it's definitely like Jaden is saying, if you're thinking of it in terms of course, and again, this could be an easy example to misinterpret because we don't equate children with domesticated animals, but
Maybe.
I'm just saying,
Not all the time.
Yeah.
if you think of what you're doing to a horse, you're not constraining it, limiting it, disciplining it, breaking it in simply to be able to just keep it there in the stall. It's being enabled for something.
Yeah.
You're actually adding to and increasing its capacity as a living creature rather than disabling it. And the reason the example falls short a little bit is because as parents we're not using our children to transport us places. Well, I guess we kind of do eventually, but they have an agency, a will in which, as Jaden said, they eventually are given that harness back to themselves, so that then they can learn that they can learn to do the very thing that hopefully the parents learn to do, which is not consider the reins of their own life, of their own will, to belong to them. And this is when it comes down to personal choice. Nothing is forced here, but they learn to give
the
that.
hard part.
Yeah, they learn to give it back to the Lord, who they consider to be their master, their father, the father of fathers, the parent of parents.
And tying that all together in a pretty little bow back to self-discipline, it's why it's so imperative that it's not like a do as I say, not as I do parenting style. Because when you give that harness back to the child, or not quite a child when you're doing that, but you know what I mean, your child, right? They are not going to necessarily look at all the ways you brought them up in. They're going to look at how does my mom, how does my dad live their life, right? And if you are not exercising that same self-discipline and following that same harness and living that life that you tried to bring your child up in, they aren't going to follow after this way you've raised them. They're going to see what you're doing. Part of the whole thing with the harness of the Lord, right, is you can't force your child to believe in God, right? That's not something that is a very worldly way of thinking of religion, right? That's not something you can do. It has to be a choice. And you're also not going to convince your child by basically forcing them into it, right? The way that you will be the best teacher to your child and the best convincer as to why it's a worthy life to live is by living that life yourself. And so that's, I think, where this writing tied in for us to why right now is actually, important for the sake of future progeny, simply because the habits that you are putting in effect now could very well be the habits and the very godly things that your child admires within you that makes them want to seek that life.
Yeah, I think that's obedience anything like that authority, yeah, it's only going to be abrasive as long as you are pulling against the leash, as long as you are strained against it. What I wish I knew was how to get done with or get over the part where you're trying to cut the rope and instead start following it. That's what I wish I had much younger.
I will say, life has a way of, for lack of a prettier term, beating you into submission. If your parents hadn't done it early on, I think part of this whole writing was essentially you're doing your child a favor by doing this early when their brain is still very formative.
Yep.
But if you, and it's cool that you are noticing that within yourself, that friction, because that is actually a sign that work is happening within you.
Yep.
It is harder because, you know, you are less malleable as an adult, right? But
like, yeah, that's one thing I've learned. Just like swimming, playing piano, doing anything, you're going to learn it very intuitively young. It is going to take more effort, but it's not going to be any less valuable to do it later.
Very true.
And if anything, the effort's going to help teach you to give that effort.
And I would
you
say
need to be strong enough to do so.
And I would say that friction you're feeling might actually just be that learning.
Yep. No, I've had that a few times where someone would tell me something and I have to sit and like scowl in a corner for a minute. Well, it's
Yeah.
like, I know that's true, but it's going to take a moment to like burn through.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the right term for it, but Noah used a term once, letting your soul throw a fit, letting your emotions.
Yeah.
I have had to do that so many times with things where it's like, yeah, this is right, but I need like a minute just to like get my go out.
Yep. No, me and Carter have a lot of moments like that where it's like, I know you're right, but I'm going to like chew on something in the corner.
I get you.
Wow, the new guy's talking more than any of y'all ever had over here.
What's that one intellect about putting into practice what you teach?
Good call.
There's a few, I think.
Well, the
But
one
it would have been
we
one of the
just
ones
went
she,
over.
yeah. Because remember, they just started 1.1.
Was it 1.4 or
Practice what you
something?
teach.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, on every day I examine myself on 3 accounts. Yeah,
Yeah.
in my dealings with others, have I been dutiful? Do you have it?
You're doing great.
But the one that's relevant is, he says something about being, in my interactions with others, have I failed to put to practice
Yes.
Yeah.
what I
There
teach?
you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I appreciate most about that intellect is, and that's what I was trying to convey to y'all yesterday, is it's not just the points in which he's examining himself, it's the fact that he is examining himself and the fact that he's doing so regularly. He says every day. So those are, if he's doing something every day, it's obviously,
That's a discipline.
it's a pretty high priority on his list to make sure that those are things that he's making progress in. And yeah, he's doing it in a pretty disciplined and formatted way. But why not? I actually used to do that. I used to have like 10 or 11 little points, like that would be asking myself a question. I would rate myself 1 to 10. How did I do in this? I'm not kidding. I did
I was
it
actually
for
thinking about doing
a while.
every night. So fast.
I'm not quite that numerical with it, but I
Yeah.
have a similar thing with like, were there moments today in which I put down my self-will in favor of what I think is right? And I'm hoping to enact things like that today because I did not want to go on the walk we're having after this, and I've decided, you know what, I'm going to go on the walk after this.
Yeah. Would Kayla ever join us? You just had to look at your face the whole time.
She actually joined and just saw Isaac and
Oh,
That's sad.
That's rude.
Anyone else? I guess to try to entice you to listen to some of the things we have started to record during our fellowship time, or our culture center time on Tuesday. Right now, we have like 5 different classes going. 2 of those first classes take place together, or they take place at the same time, but in different groups.
Okay.
The first class, which actually all of us here except Emma, are a part of, is a time where we're going over the Analects. I don't know if you've heard of that.
It's
No.
Confucius.
Yeah, Confucius you've heard of before.
Yeah.
I'm sure. That's his main body of teachings is the Analects, and
Okay.
it's something that actually for the last several years now we've been going through kind of Analect by Analect. It's just kind of like it begins a discussion point, and we will kind of go from there. It's not as much like like trying to make our way through some scholarly interpretation of his work, or even necessarily that we're trying to
Define
as an
it.
educational pursuit, try to become more familiar with Chinese philosophy. It's more so there are a lot of principles in there that kind of are geared towards considering the development of oneself in something like virtue or virtuous behavior, but more so, and this is all within the context of what it means to live as a community, what it looks like to build a culture or a kind of way of living in the midst of a family of people. So that cultural, that communal aspect of it is, I think, actually the most integral part of the discussion. Anyways, that's our Analects class. The other young people have a Bible class that they're going through at the same time. Following that, we have my writing class that I help lead. That has, for the most part, been kind of like an assignment of writing task, with usually poetry and essays. Over the last couple months, it's actually been geared more towards looking at the Analects, but with everybody. So it's kind of been a
survey
of Chinese culture, but I guess it would be better said to say an ancient way of relationships, of doing community, of doing or considering things like actually much of what we talked about today, self-discipline, things like that. But it's kind of tied into the writing class. We still do writing projects. And then I don't know if you've met Justin Lacasse. This is Kayla's dad.
No.
Yeah.
Got a cool
He has
mustache.
he
No,
does
definitely
now.
not seen him then.
He has a literature class. He's had one for a while. Right now we're actually going over the book Ben-Hur. I don't know if you've heard of it or
No,
read it.
I keep seeing it from Esther.
Yeah, I was gonna say you've probably
Oh.
seen her bring the book to the cafe and then never.
Yeah.
open it.
So that's been really entertaining and fascinating and inspiring and informative. So it's been a really good class.
Mhm.
And then following that, you already picked this up, I'm sure, but my dad has a family discussion class.
And that's
So-
what we remember that writing that we were
Yeah,
talking about.
we talked about what it looks like to, from both a spiritual and a practical perspective, what it looks like to have a family, raise a family. So it's all a very new topic to us. Anyways, all of these times, as it is, are being recorded and posted on YouTube on the Kingdom Age YouTube channel. So if you're not able to find it yourself, just let us know. If you're interested, you don't have to. But it's
I will say if all of it is too intimidating, I would say that like some of the more practical stuff and might be a little more easily digestible would be that first Confucius class and then Tim's last class, his family class. I would say those are if all of it in its entirety is too intimidating. I'd say those are 2 great places to start if either of those interest you.
I don't know how to phrase it, but if I'm being more honest than I want to say, I'd love to be a part of everything, of all of it. But I know that's coming from a place of indulgence in my mind. That's just because I grew up alone. The idea of all of this community and people, it is enticing as much as it's intoxicating. So I pace myself with everything. As I've said, I'll only go to the places that will have me. And you guys have been very welcoming in that regard. and don't always know what to do with all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to show up to more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff.
Yeah, we'll just-
plural, I guess.
It's best just to kind of, I guess, let things play out. The culture center is not a place where just anybody can come, and it's not exclusive per se either.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've heard that's been a fun thing to try and balance.
yeah, there is a requirement, I guess I would say, that the members of that time, the participants of that time have come to a specific, or I guess a true understanding of where they're at in their spiritual walk. So before the Lord, this is not, it should not be misunderstood as kind of being like another co-op. That's definitely something we're trying to avoid.
I might need. What does co-op mean?
Well, like another homeschool group.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
It's an interpersonal journey.
the simplest way to put it is that time is a commitment to a way of life, not just a
Yeah, that's a much
not
better
not
way to
just
put
a Tuesday meeting, right? Like the people that go there are not just there because we like hanging out.
But it's a conviction.
We are all committed to a way of life, and that time in a way reflects that commitment. And so again, it is not anything.
In fact, it's actually the very thing we're teaching beyond the subject matter of the classes. That's actually a time for us to, as a community, exercise this vision that has actually been given to us by God of how to function and live as a community and family of people. And so if that vision is, it doesn't even just have to be something you know of or are ignorant of, but you're actually, as Jaden said, committed to it. You're invested in it. You're all for it. That's the qualification, if you will,
Yeah.
of
Is-
participating in those times.
And yeah, for context, I did not. We've lived here for what, 4, almost 5 years now, right? And I did not join that time till last year.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, I was not committed. I had no interest in that way of life. Even though I liked all these people and enjoyed spending time with them, that was not something that I wanted to do, or that I think I was even ready to do. And so I think part of the encouragement from Noah and I with checking out those videos is like, if that is something that you like, you don't even have to really know what we're talking about. Just if it seems interesting, check out those videos. Just like you go what I'm kind of saying. It's like a good.
No, it's a good way to find out if
If it's even something that's valuable to you. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, no expectation or pressure there, but if you are interested, I can agree. That is an amazing resource.
Jade, do you want to pray for us to wrap it up?
Sure, I will do my best. Well, Father, I am very grateful to have each person here today, whether they talked much or not. I am, and I'm sure not just me, but we are all invested in the lives that are here today. And I enjoy the relationships that I share with each person in this room, and I pray that those relationships continue to develop within each of us, between each of us, in the correct and heavenly way. Father, I think that these relationships are one of, if not the most important thing in life. And I am thankful for every opportunity that we get to form new ones and for current ones to be strengthened. I pray for our submission to what you're doing here. I don't think any of us have a very clear idea of what that's going to look like, and I think that's intentional. And so I pray for
flexibility in the wind and for some semblance of structure to remain regardless. Thank you for this time, and thank you for these people. And I pray that your work continues outside of this room. Amen.
Amen.